Most women are not getting enough creatine in the diet, well below, which has been associated with some menstrual cycle negative effects and kind of ovarian effects over time.
Yeah.
Which really tells me, okay, even if you do eat enough animal proteins, that supplementation can really supplement the diet in a very positive way.
You're listening to Be Well by Kelly LeVeque. A world-renowned scientist and educator, Dr. Abbie Smith-Ryan is a professor in the Department of Exercise and Sports Science at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. With over 205 peer-reviewed manuscripts, numerous book chapters, and international presentations, Dr. Smith-Ryan is a leading expert in body composition, metabolism, sports nutrition, and exercise performance, and with special focus on women's health. Her research spans NIH-funded projects to industry-supported clinical trials, all aimed at improving metabolic and cardiovascular health through evidence-based exercise and nutrition interventions. Beyond the lab, Abbie is a former collegiate athlete, a mother of two, driven by a passion to translate scientific advances into real-world tools for busy women and parents. She specializes in smart, time-efficient strategies to elevate health, performance, and daily quality of life. Abbie Smith-Ryan, I have been waiting. I have been stalking you. I've been waiting for this interview. I love your brain and all the things you're researching, and I just couldn't wait to have you on to be the expert on all things body composition, creatine, training for women in perimenopause especially. Thank you for your time.
Thanks for having me, and that's such a great way to get to talk about real life and science and how do we pull it all together. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, and I love to hear that you were having a sleepover with Gabby Reeves because she is goals when it comes to like holding on to lean muscle mass and training, through perimenopause and menopause and all of that, and like just what a babe.
Her soul is beautiful.
I know.
Happy to soak that up while I'm here.
Yeah, exactly. She just gives so much goodness out into the world. So I already know what kind of person you are without even being friends with you yet. So, I want to start with creatine because I think I've seen from your work and also just your research and your ability to explain it. So many times people are talking about taking creatine, and I was even telling you that there was someone who was selling it who said it was an amino acid. And I think, you know what? If anyone's going to give us the 101 on creatine, it's going to be Abbie. So I would love to go down that rabbit hole with you. First, what is creatine?
Such a simple question. So creatine is made of amino acids. It's a non-proteogenic amino acid that's formed in our body. Okay. And it essentially helps increase phosphocreatine storage, or creatine leads to phosphocreatine, which helps us regenerate ATP. Most people know ATP as energy.
Yeah.
So it helps us have more energy.
So what exactly is happening that allows for creatine to create energy?
So, creatine is naturally made in our liver, and it's stored in many parts of our body, so our muscle, our bones, our brain. And when we use creatine, it helps regenerate phosphocreatine, which then helps us create more ATP. And ATP is how every cell in the body keeps going, particularly during exercise or when we need energy.
Well, looking back on high school, we were joking before the podcast started. People used to say, "Oh, it's a steroid," and like only the male athletes were taking it, and it was making them so swole, right? They're like putting on this lean muscle mass. But how exactly is the creation of ATP? How does that translate into bigger muscles?
Yeah, and I do think it's so great that we've moved away from creatine as a bodybuilding supplement. But I think that's really great how it started, because if it's still around, typically that means it works. But when we think about how creatine works with relationship to ATP, it allows us to do more work. So we have a little bit more energy to do a little bit more in the gym or push ourselves a little bit harder. So most of the science is around creatine helps us produce more energy, which helps us to have slightly better workouts or do a little bit more volume. And that indirectly helps us build more muscle mass.
That makes sense to me. A little bit more energy, lifting a little heavier, pushing a little longer, and then all of a sudden you're more sore and you're building more lean muscle mass over time, right?
Yeah, and that's where all of this creatine data started. But then when you see that, that's just one aspect that it helps us. So when we think about muscle and we think about energy, we know it does that. We know it increases ATP and will allow for better workouts. I personally get excited about all the other benefits it has that I think also supports muscle, but more indirectly. Things related to recovery and inflammation and brain, probably things we'll talk about.
Yeah. Well, let's start with recovery and inflammation. We'll move from muscles to brain and maybe the organs of reproduction, like your ovaries, and how it's been supportive of cycles and pregnancy, delivery, postpartum, things like that. But specifically in inflammation and recovery, how is creatine helping there?
Well, still lots of research to be done based on the data that we do have. It works as almost to reduce oxidative stress. Okay. So most of us have oxidative stress without exercise, but that elevates it a little bit. And creatine helps you work as an antioxidant, which may help reduce inflammation. So essentially, it may help us recover a little bit faster. Which then can help with many things. It also works as a metabolic buffer. So it helps with the ATP, it helps with inorganic phosphate, inorganic phosphate is accumulating. Creatine can help go in and sequester that, reduce that, which then helps metabolism down the line, which also helps with recovery. So most people might think, or we learned about lactate accumulation and hydrogen ions. Creatine helps buffer pH with inorganic phosphate, which helps us kind of maintain higher intensity longer, or after exercise, also reduce those metabolites.
Allowing you to get back in the gym faster or feel better sooner or not have that inflammation.
Yeah, and I think that's where we see applications besides just strength and lean mass is those energy systems. So the phosphagen energy system is active regardless of the exercise that we're doing. It's also active after exercise. And so the benefit occurs as well as when we finish exercise and to return to daily living.
Can you explain that system for people who don't understand what it is?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have 3 basic energy systems. The fastest and the most kind of quick energy is our phosphagen system, also called ATP PCR or ATP phosphocreatine. And that is what gives us our quick energy. The best example I give is if I were to run out the door right now or we were to go to exercise, we need energy pretty quickly. And that's going to come from that first energy system. Regardless of the type of exercise, that energy system will kind of turn on and off and replenish as we kick into glycolysis and oxidative metabolism. But that initial energy system will kind of always replenish. And so although we associate that a lot of times with power sports or resistance training, it's still active in our running and our swimming and our walking, which is also why we see the benefit of creatine to replenish that phosphocreatine stores. It turns on and off during all types of exercise, and then also when we're done. There's a lot of metabolic aspects happening when we finish exercise that requires that replenishment of ATP and phosphocreatine.
So from ATP and phosphocreatine, then we move into
glycolysis.
And so what is that?
So glycolysis is essentially giving us energy from glucose in our blood. It's a little bit quicker. We have limited stores. We also call both of those systems anaerobic, without oxygen. You never actually exercise without oxygen, but it gives our body time to give us energy before we move into oxidative metabolism, which relies on fats and stored carbohydrates like glycogen. So it takes a little bit longer, requires more oxygen.
And that's the breaking down of glycogen, which is a long chain of glucose stored in our muscles or fat from our fat cells, right?
Absolutely. And that gives us, we have lots of stores. We have limited stores of glycogen, but lots of stores of fat. And that's largely what we rely on. As we sit here, we're using oxidative metabolism, plenty of oxygen. When we exercise, we typically will tap into more of our glycolysis and our phosphagen system.
It's amazing. So when you think about someone trying to use that burst energy, lift heavy, like how would you create a, like, I don't want to say like a supplement plan or a meal plan around knowing that that we want to be able to use that phosphagen system and the glycolysis?
Yeah, so I'll give you this example. I was a collegiate runner, and there's some really cool data on, although you have to do lots of aerobic exercise, your steady state running, really cool data around explosive power training to improve running.
Yeah.
And the same concept goes to something like a creatine supplementation, that you're still going to very much rely on those energy systems for quick energy that you need for the start and stop or the sprint to the finish.
Yeah.
Thus incorporating things like power training, heavy resistance training, sprint interval training. All of those things will synergistically work or maximize the benefits of creatine for all types of exercise.
My new amino acid supplements come in flavorless and lemon water, and they're flying off the shelves, and here's why. I have meticulously sourced these vegan fermented essential amino acids from Japan. I am so proud of this being made the Be Well way, with maximum quality and minimum ingredients. My flavorless is simply those vegan fermented essential amino acids from Japan. Our lemon water contains minimal ingredients of only organic lemon powder, organic citric acid, and organic monk fruit. No natural flavors, no artificial flavors, no artificial sweeteners, no emulsifiers, no additives. This is simply that nutrition targeted for your goals. If you want to give my Be Well protein or aminos a try, or restock it if you're already loving it, take advantage of my gift for podcast listeners. Code podcast10 is going to get you $10 off just for being a listener. Write it down and shop with me after you listen. Winning your mornings starts with a strong night routine. For me, sleep is everything. If I don't get it, my whole day feels off. And that's why I'm so excited about AG1's brand new nighttime drink, AGZ. AGZ is designed to support restful, restorative sleep with clinical studied ingredients, including adaptogens, herbs, and minerals. It's melatonin-free and works with your body's natural sleep cycle to help you fall asleep, stay asleep, and wake up feeling refreshed. It's the perfect nightcap, especially during the back-to-school season. I love to drink it about 30 minutes before bed, warm with water, and my favorite book. The difference in my sleep has been incredible. I fall asleep faster, sleep more deeply, and wake up energized, not groggy. AGZ helps me optimize my sleep so I can show up fully for my mornings and my day. If you want to take your sleep seriously, I have a special offer for you. Head to ag1.com/bewell and get your free welcome kit with the flavor of your choice, including a 30-day supply of AGZ and a free frother, because sleep tonight really does define tomorrow. It's so cool. So creatine as a form of energy, obviously that makes perfect sense to me when we're talking about physical activity. But I think what's so exciting about creatine, especially, now that I'm in my 40s, is thinking about all of the benefits when it comes to reproductive health and cycle health, when it comes to mood, sleep deprivation. We were talking. I have a 7-year-old almost 7-year-old with an ear infection, and then I had like 2 potty breaks at 2:30 and 4:30, and I was like, am I having a newborn sleep the night before 4 podcasts? And like, I'm gonna just dump 20 grams of creatine in my coffee this morning, and then ask Abbie why it's so important.
Right there with you.
Yeah, all of those like other reasons I think are really opening the eyes of women who have been afraid to take creatine because they're like, well, I'm not powerlifting in the gym and I'm not CrossFitting, but they actually start to see like, oh wow, it's energy for all organs, including like our ovaries and our brain and all of this. Like, how is it working to support all those other things?
So many questions.
Yeah.
And so when I think about a lot of the space right now, I was talking to a reporter this week about creatine for women. And there's all these products that are specifically pink and creatine, but it's going to work for a woman in the same way that it will a man. But females have so many other environmental and life things that it really can optimize the benefits of creatine. So when I first think, and we can go a different direction, but we started to tackle this in the lab with first looking at across the menstrual cycle to really start to understand how might some female sex hormones impact the ability to utilize creatine, or, and more importantly, with our natural fluid fluctuations, how might that be impacted? And so when we look across the menstrual cycle, and there's multiple phases, but if we simplify and say the follicular phase, essentially when you're menstruating, and the luteal phase right before you menstruate, kind of when women feel they're the least best. And we also have
super
more,
sexy.
Yes, more fluid retention. There's also some data that maybe it's harder for women to recover and perform during that phase. We wanted to say, okay, how might creatine impact that? And there was some really interesting findings, and this is in naturally menstruating women. So in that luteal phase, creatine seemed to pull more water from the extracellular space into the cell, which can be really helpful, especially if you have any sort of edema or a little extra fluid, a little puffiness in that luteal phase. It helped pull it into the cell. The other really important part is if you have more intracellular fluid, it does create an environment that might optimize increases in muscle. We did not test that in that study, but we did look at performance changes, and creatine helped improve performance in the luteal phase as well. So like across a normal female kind of hormonal fluctuations, there does seem to be some benefits beyond just what we would see in a more hormone neutral environment in the follicular phase. And I always connect that. That's very similar to how if we would study a male, kind of baseline flatlined hormones. And so I think that leads us to have more foundation of what happens as our hormones continue to fluctuate through pregnancy, through perimenopause, into more of the back end flatline into postmenopause.
Okay. So when you think about, because I've seen some studies showing that like people who don't cycle regularly or have like polycystic ovarian syndrome, that creatine can be supportive of regulating some of those irregular cycles. Have you seen that data at all?
I would say probably more related to the symptom management. So with PCOS, usually there's greater inflammation. So I don't know. And Dr. Stacey Ellery out of Australia is doing a lot of the kind of pregnancy and fetal growth. It's not going to directly impact hormone regulation, but with creatine related to creatine kinase enzyme, sometimes that can be impacted. But also the higher inflammatory response in a lot of those conditions like PCOS, creatine can likely help with symptom management and potentially feeling better.
Okay. So going back to like those naturally cycling women that you were studying and that intracellular fluid, can you talk about, because just fluid retention and creatine and quote unquote fluid retention, because they're, I think the most well-known side effects that people complain about of creatine are like GI-related side effects and what they call water weight. Can you explain what is actually happening when you take creatine, what the fluid is, where it is, and why it's important?
Yes. Okay. So I think one of the things that there's more clarity now, but still misunderstood. So creatine, and the most widely studied is creatine monohydrate, which is creatine plus a water molecule. And so creatine with the water molecule essentially pulls water from the extracellular space into the muscle, and your muscle is mostly water. So that's a good thing. It often brings other things with it. It often brings glucose with it. But if you have higher doses of creatine, so let's say more of our loading phase, our 20 grams a day, it does pull creatine into the cell along with water. That in itself is great. It helps prevent things like dehydration. But if you hold a lot more fluid, and people are more responders versus non-responders, you may, with a loading dose, hold more fluid, which if I were to step on a scale, most women only see about a half a pound of increase in body weight. And we actually evaluated that across the menstrual cycle. Without creatine, most women see about a half a pound upwards to 2 pounds of increased weight in the luteal phase, coming mostly from fluid. With creatine, it was about half a pound more than placebo, really no difference. And you typically don't see that with the lower doses. So I also, from the scientific side, I actually really love when we see a slight weight gain because it tells me that the muscle is saturated and it dissipates within a couple days. So it tells me that this muscle is actually uptaking the creatine just like we want it to.
That's great. It's almost like a good sign that it's working.
It is, exactly. I don't know. And it's not like this massive weight gain. I do think the GI distress and the weight gain is good to talk about because every woman is different. And I think it's really powerful for a woman to like understand her body, which is if you start taking creatine, I would be observant. And if you are more responsive, that's a good thing. You can always kind of see, oh, it is working for me more than others.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned loading phase, and I think I want to go down dosing, and because all of these studies are, coming out, they're studying different quantities, they're loading, they're not loading, the design is all over the place. And then, the woman buying creatine is like, so how much do I take?
Yes.
Can you talk about the different ways that you can load or not load and dosing and
so it all comes down to, like from a scientific research perspective, there's a reason that the doses are different. It's because we were trying to evaluate something in a tightly controlled manner. And so oftentimes we will use a loading dose because then it only takes me 5 days in the lab to see those increases. So a loading dose is 5 grams 4 times a day for 5 to 7 days. And the literature there is very comprehensive for decades to say that will increase muscle creatine for most people. Now that level of saturation can vary across a person. So in a lab, if I'm doing a research study, I want to ensure that I have that loading phase if I'm going to test the effects of creatine. So we would do that short dose. You don't need the loading phase. There's other data that suggest a lower 3 to 5 gram daily dose will also increase muscle creatine stores. It will just take a little bit longer. So 2 to 3 weeks to see the same increases in muscle creatine.
Everybody listening is like, yeah, okay, loading dose.
Well,
5 to 7 days. I'll get there and then we'll rock and roll and see how it works.
I mean, if a woman comes to me and say, I'm really interested in taking creatine, I would say, okay, well, what kind of benefits are you wanting to see, and what does your lifestyle look like? Are you like me with an 8-year-old who's up at 4 a.m, and I want that benefit quickly? Then it does allow you to see, does it work for me in a short-term effect? Like I don't have time to figure it out. And so that loading dose does allow me to see, how does my body respond? Now that's on an accelerated, like, okay, you might hold a little bit more in the muscle. You might, have a little bit more energy, but then you go to a maintenance dose. Or if someone's like, oh, I've been taking creatine for a long time, or I want to start and I don't want to do the loading dose, a daily dose of 5 grams is also very effective. You might just not see the results as quickly. It's more subtle.
I choose Function for my family and my team members. And I do that because Function gets you access to over 100 biomarkers, from hormones to toxins to markers for heart health, inflammation, and stress. And for an additional fee, you can add on extra tests, which also give you access to MRI and chest CT scans. I love that we get a 360-degree view of our health, and we get to track it in one place over time. And this is especially important over the holidays, which are often a time for celebration, but they come with heavy meals, alcohol, and less sleep, and your liver ends up working overtime. Now, most people only think about the liver when it's a problem, but this organ is central to metabolism, detoxification, and nutrient balance. And its workload can show up in your labs. And Function gives us a look into those biomarkers that reveal how our liver is really holding up. ALT, AST, ALP, and GGT, enzymes that rise when liver cells are stressed or injured. Even small increases can be early clues that your liver is under strain. total bilirubin. This measures how efficiently your liver clears waste products. Elevated levels can indicate problems with processing or bile flow. Then you have total protein, albumin, and globulin. These markers reflect the liver's role in making essential proteins that support immunity, repair, and fluid balance. Now, most routine checkups don't give you this full picture, but Function does. So learn more and join by using my link. Function is a near 360 view to see what's happening in your body, and the first 1,000 people to use my code get a $100 credit toward their membership. So visit www.functionhealth.com/BeWell100 or use the gift code BeWell100 at sign up to own your health. This episode is sponsored by Vuori, my absolute go-to for activewear, loungewear, and effortlessly combined comfort, style, and performance. Whether I'm working from home or working out, Vuori has me covered. Now let me share a few of my current favorites right now. Right now, I'm living in my Vuori Performance joggers, my long sleeve Halo crew neck, my Halo Performance top, and these pieces are perfect for lounging and being able to go to a quick errand or school drop-off. The Halo Performance Jogger is my everyday essential. The fabric is incredibly soft. Seriously, it feels like butter on your skin, and they're part of Vuori's Dream Knit collection, which means they're made with ultra-soft, lightweight fabric with relaxed fit, 4-way stretch, moisture-wicking properties. They're perfect for everything from low-impact workouts to just chasing my boys around the house. So paired with the Halo top and the long sleeve Halo crew neck, I've got the perfect combo for comfort and style that I can wear all day long. And here's the best part. Vuori is offering a special deal for my listeners. Get 20% off your purchase. So go to vuori.com/Kelly to snag this deal, experience the comfort, and let me know what you think. Well, let's talk about what might not be subtle, which is your perimenopause creatine study that's currently ongoing. Can we talk a little bit about that, the study design, what you have these women loading with, and what are some of the results they're seeing?
Yeah, and I think the dosing part matters in a group of perimenopause when we think, and we haven't even talked about the benefits for or supplementation for brain.
Yeah.
And dosing is a little bit different there.
Yeah.
But when we think about perimenopause, when a lot of the research around brain, creatine tends to be more effective in more of a cognitively stressed environment. So fatigued, brain fog, mood. And that is every perimenopausal woman I know. Yeah. And so
no, we're doing just fine.
Yeah. We haven't even
just ask my husband.
Right? But I think there's this even untapped impact of hormone replacement therapy, of how this also starts to impact the brain. And so can something like a creatine, when we know it impacts hormonal changes and things like cognition and brain fog, is that then the most opportune time? Which is why we decided to study creatine combined with some resistance training in the group that needs it the most, especially when you think about the pleiotropic effects of creatine. It impacts the muscle, potentially impacts bone and brain. That's the decade that we need the most impact in. And so we currently are looking at a 1-week loading phase with a randomized controlled trial of creatine, a non-caloric placebo, or a control, nothing at all. Have a loading dose of 5 days, followed by 5 grams a day for 6 weeks, combined with high-intensity resistance training for twice a week.
Only twice a week?
Twice a week.
Wow, amazing.
Yes. It's a protocol we've had a lot of success with.
Yeah.
It's heavy progressive resistance training that the women come to the lab and we do with them, combined with creatine to really dial in some of these effects.
So what are we seeing on the back end?
It's been actually better than I thought. So we've only finished about 6 people so far, and it's blinded. So I don't know the creatine versus the placebo group. But we're seeing a lot of body recomposition. And so we're not changing a lot of their dietary intake. We're tracking instead.
Yeah.
And so by body recomposition, we're seeing not a ton of changes in body mass, but changes and an increase in muscle measured by DEXA and PQCT, which is basically a CT scan, and decreases in fat mass. And with that PQCT, we're also seeing a decrease of intramuscular fat. And so really, we're seeing this really important body composition change. We've also started to see some really cool changes in bone. Wow. So like bone takes a really long time to build. So I'm not going to like put my feather in that cap, but a trend beyond measurement error of increase in bone, not only from whole body DEXA, but from PQCT. And so some good pilot data to say like, oh, we might actually be able to help these midlife women with bone before we start worrying about it in postmenopause, which is typically when we're allowed to get that information.
Yeah.
We also have seen changes. We're doing some cognitive markers and some improvement in cognition, which is also really cool.
So that leads us right into all of the brain health, mood, sleep deprivation. What are we seeing from that standpoint when it comes to supplementing with creatine? And you can start with your cognition piece on your study and kind of tell me what else you're seeing in the literature that you're excited about.
Yeah, so the initial data, a lot of it was driven by Perry Renshaw and Dr. Eric Rawson of creatine supplementation really helping in sleep-deprived individuals. So I'm thinking like military. Yeah, well, right, they didn't think about women, right? Yeah. Like, and I mean, gosh, even college students. Yeah. And so creatine doesn't tend to impact brain and mood and sleep in well-rested individuals. But when you think about the groups that are the most sleep-deprived, I think about moms.
Yeah.
And then you think about changes in sleep and duration in perimenopause due to hot flashes or whatever it may be. And so when you think about the application, creatine has been shown to help with sleep. Actually, a recent study by Dr. Ann Brown, after resistance training, on the days that women resistance trained, creatine helped improve sleep duration and quality. And so that was in more younger women, but we also are tracking sleep in our perimenopausal women as well to say, can we replicate that? And is it helping with other sleep? They say as you get older, you don't need as much sleep, but maybe it's more quality. I would love that.
Yeah.
And then if we're sleeping better or thinking about sleep impacts everything from muscle recovery to brain function. And that's the other element then of cognition and mood and brain fog. And we have creatine stores in the brain. Our brain uses ATP just like our muscles. And so creatine has also been shown now more that it can help with brain energy and focus and cognition.
Yeah, I'm even seeing studies linking it to improvements in Alzheimer's patients, which is just like, it makes sense when you think about it's something that supports energy production and fast energy production, and your whole body needs energy and produces energy depending on what that organ needs or what that muscle needs or whatever. It's kind of amazing because I poo-pooed it for so long in high school and was like, no, I'm not going to do drugs.
Oh my goodness. Yes.
Steroids.
Yes. Yes.
But it's just amazing. So I did see too, that their safety studies are great. Like people can take it at any age. What would you say is like a sweet, obviously perimenopause is a great time to take creatine, but what about for kids, teenagers, elderly? Like, what do you think about the safety of creatine? And
can we go back to the brain studies real quick?
Yeah.
Just because there are two brand new studies that are really relevant. Okay. You mentioned the one in Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
And it most recently, as a group out of Kansas, showed that creatine supplementation helped improve Alzheimer's brain benefits, which is really hard to do.
Yeah.
So I think the fact that it's working and the results were very surprising, need to be replicated. But then also most recently, there was a paper just published by Dr. Sergei Ostajic out of overseas, and he has shown that a lower dose, 1.5 grams, they use creatine HCl, also improved cognition in perimenopause. It was the first perimenopause study, which just really highlights this idea that with changes in hormones and the changes in our brain, we're not crazy, that creatine might help more in those brain benefits. And so I just, the science is growing and developing, and there's a lot of benefit. And then you bring up the side effects, which is really important, and the safety. There is very minimal risk. The only things to consider is if we go back to the fluid changes, creatine does pull water from the cell, extracellular space into the cell. So if you take creatine and you're dehydrated already, it doesn't have a lot of water to pull from. So often you want to increase fluid. I know, yes, and most of us need more water anyways. So I wouldn't say at risk for dehydration, but it definitely won't work as well. Depending on what you're taking your creatine with, there's many other things and products, and that can accelerate GI distress. That's one thing people will feel. Or if you think about water pulling into the cell pretty quickly, maybe some bloating. Not super common, but it can happen for some people. And I typically say go back to the source and what are you mixing it with. And then a lot of people talk about increases in creatinine. So creatine is produced in the liver. It will slightly raise creatinine, but so will eating meat. It's not to a massive level. It's a slight increases in creatinine just from pure liver creation.
Okay. So now you bring me to another topic, which is obviously like we can take creatine as a supplement, but like our liver produces creatine and creatine is in certain proteins. Like what's the split? Like when people are eating an animal-based diet or include animal-based foods like fish and red meat or, and then they also have their liver doing a job and then say potentially they're supplementing, like what does the split look like? And who benefits the most from supplementing with creatine?
And I think this is one of the most important questions that doesn't get enough light, is that I think you and I both are very much a whole foods first approach. I also didn't used to believe in supplements, but creatine is one of those that it's very difficult to get the amount in your diet. So 5 grams of creatine, 1 teaspoon, I would have to eat about 2 to 3 pounds of meat or fish on top of my daily intake to get that 5 gram amount. I don't know about you, but some days I barely get enough of my baseline. And so it's really about optimizing and maximizing. And I like to think that I have a pretty good prioritization on food, and it's still difficult to get. And then when you think about a lot of people aren't eating as much red meat, or it's harder to get high quality fish, or then you transition into vegan and more plant-based approaches, which are great, but missing that animal protein component that provides creatine. And when we think, there's actually some really cool data that I got to be a part of looking more at NHANES dietary intake across the US. And most women are not getting enough creatine in the diet, well below, which has been associated with some menstrual cycle negative effects and kind of ovarian effects over time, which really tells me, okay, even if you do eat enough animal proteins, that supplementation can really supplement the diet in a very positive way.
And in such an easy way. It tastes like nothing. It's like a teaspoon. I put it in my coffee. I don't taste the difference. I mean, talking about, like you just mentioned earlier, like mixing it with things can make it an issue, taking it when is the best time to take it? I mean, I may just totally be like, you're going to be like, don't put it in your coffee. I mean, what can we put it in? When should we take it? Morning, noon, or night? Like, are there different benefits based on the time of day? I mean, you're telling me a loading phase of 20 grams, split up 5 grams 4 times a day. Does that like lower side effects? Like what's the whole
How to
What's
take
the
it away.
reasoning?
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I would say the most important is that you take it every day. Consistency trumps everything.
Everything,
yeah,
right?
Well, so I mean, I think that is the first thing I would say. Don't worry about when to take it. If you really want to optimize, and we didn't add this into the dosing of like, let's say you don't want to do a 20-gram dose, or you've been taking 5 grams. Some of the newer research coming out shows that like a 10-gram dose might be better for brain and or bone. And so like for me, I typically take 5 to 10 grams at a single dose. As far as time of day, what do you want the benefits to be? So kind of general rule of thumb, it doesn't matter when, but if we try and optimize, post-exercise is one of the best times you can take most things because your muscle is like a sponge. You've just wrung it out, and now I'm going to fuel it, and it's going to saturate it and refuel kind of more quickly. If I want the brain benefits, creatine tends to peak a couple hours, 2 to 3 hours after you consume it. And so I took some creatine before I came to make sure my brain was firing. I take it before I teach. I also see a lot of people have this because of the brain energy. Sometimes it does cause this. It's definitely not a stimulant effect, but it does cause a little bit of an energy in the brain. So I often will take it in that afternoon slump when I am feeling really sleepy and I don't want caffeine. So, there is no time or not to take it, but finding a time, there's a lot of honing in what benefits that you want.
Yeah. Just to be consistent, I love coffee, so I put it in my coffee, and about 10 grams. I started with 5, and I'm about at 10 now, based on my like just life with my children and my and like my business and everything. But I would say like I feel a physical change in the afternoon when I take it in the afternoon. Like I was. And my audience knows this, that caffeine's my favorite drug, and that I love an afternoon.
Not a drug.
Yes, I love a stimulant. I love an afternoon coffee, but it kicks my butt. It messes with my sleep. It like messes with my appetite. Then I eat less. Then my metabolism crashes. Then I'm basically like fighting the caloric scale situation where I'd much rather be like a pregnant person with like this huge metabolism and then come off the back end and be like, all right, let's rock and roll. I don't know. That's me personally, but creatine's really helped me with that. Like that afternoon, I did find it's called Daydream. It's a cold brew that's caffeine free, just for the flavor.
I love coffee too, mostly decaf.
Good for you.
Yes,
okay, so I'm coming around, but I'll throw it in that, or maybe just an electrolyte drink, and then, or I don't even know, like sometimes a magnesium drink, because I'm like, there's just few things where I feel like I take it because I actually notice a difference for me personally. Creatine being one of those things, magnesium at night being another one of those things, like, and then amino acids occasionally if I'm like feeling like I can't put sentences together.
This is my hack, especially I'm thinking about my weekend before I came here. We went to soccer, to baseball, to a birthday party.
Same.
And I love to have a big water bottle with 5 to 10 grams of creatine, some essential amino acids, maybe some nootropics depending, and like a seltzer water.
Tell me everything. What are your nootropics?
Rhodiola is one of my favorite. Even something like L-taurine.
Yeah. Okay.
And then I throw in like a seltzer water and mix it all up, and it really helps me in that afternoon. And I don't know about you, but like if I am running from event to event, I don't necessarily have time to sit down and have a meal. So those amino acids and the creatine in between my meals really helps me maintain lean muscle as I age. It's just about using the science to our benefit.
100%. Yeah. No, I think that's kind of why I love those, is just because of that exact reason. And also for me personally, if I start to get to a place where I know I can feel my blood, it's just been years of like tracking my blood sugar, understanding blood sugar, using CGMs. Like if I'm rolling from 2 back-to-back soccer games and we have like 30 minutes in the car and like a bag of like beef sticks and hard-boiled eggs and apples or whatever, it's like, even though I'm having that stuff, I know I'm crashing out at that birthday party, and I don't want to be sitting there with like chips, pizza, cupcakes, And it's like that kind of thing is just supportive of, okay, I'm going to get me through this, and then we'll get home and have some like high quality protein whole food dinner.
Yeah.
Like it's just not being your worst enemy.
Absolutely.
You know?
Well, and I feel like my brain has changed where I want to like sit and eat versus like grabbing something. You're just always moving. I want to like be able to sit and digest. So these are just like little things to help optimize aging as we get older.
Yeah. Well, you were an athlete, but you still hold on to such amazing lean body mass, and your body composition is like aspirational in my opinion. And I know it takes a lot of work. So can you talk to me a little bit about if someone does want to see these body composition changes like the study that you're doing? You obviously mentioned creatine, aminos, nootropics. What does day in life of you look like, or what would you recommend to someone when it comes to having a big impact on their body composition, even, in their early 40s?
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the reasons that I've continued to study in this space. Over the last 8 to 10 years, I've focused on women only because that's where the data has taken me. But yeah, I used to train for hours, and we don't have time for that.
Yeah.
And so it's all about consistency, and a lot of my work is around time efficient based effective exercise. So high intensity interval training, high intensity resistance training. I still run a couple days, but I don't train nearly as much as I used to. But it's all about consistency and optimizing nutrition. My students always laugh. They're like, it's not fair. You have science on your side. I was like, I do. And I think it's so important to share that when you think about there are negative sides of overexercise, joint pain over time, injury. So if we can really say, if I have 30 minutes and I can do that something every day. That doesn't mean I'm going high intensity every day, but something consistent and really maximize the benefit. And how do we maximize the benefit is having nutrients around our training to help not only our workouts, but also fuel from our workouts when we run to the classroom or to the soccer field. So yeah, I mean, it's consistency and adding, we know intensity has a positive benefit and mental health benefits of just the, blood flow, the consistent day in and day out.
So when you look at your day specifically and you think about, I know you're studying high intensity training, fed versus fasted, and you just mentioned nutrients around a workout and the efficiency of that. Run me through, like, if you have 30 minutes a day, does it change every day when you get to work out? Or are you like consistently a morning workout person or an afternoon workout person? Like, what have you seen for yourself and for your subjects?
Yeah, so I think I will happily share, but everyone just needs to figure out what works for them, and there is no right or wrong. It's when can you do it. For me, I train a couple days in the morning where I'll run in the dark and do something a little bit longer on the weekend. And during those days, I will often not eat anything before because it's maybe 5 a.m. I might have a little bit of coffee, maybe put amino acid or some milk in there. But then when I finish, I'll make sure that I have some high quality protein, some fiber, to get my day going. Other days I'll train in the afternoon. I'll get 30 minutes to do a quick lift, maybe, a quick interval on the bike or a warm up. And then some days I just walk, or, I might make my kids run with me as we, go to practice. And so when I think about fueling, do you have to eat around exercise? It's been such a contentious topic, which I think is silly, but it goes back to a comment you said of most women, particularly as we age, if you are active, and this is an area where we're trying to dive into of the symptoms of low energy availability are very similar to perimenopause. And so if you take probably most of your listeners, we're active, yet we're trying to have a job and a family. There are many days I might not fuel enough. So if I can really prioritize around training, that can offset some of the negative side effects of maybe longer times throughout the day when I'm teaching for 5 hours and I can't eat anything, or people are, not thinking about it, are too busy. And so that helps us kind of make up for some of those times when we're not as focused.
So it's not like sleep deprivation all week and then sleeping all weekend long, but it actually is having a benefit to have your nutrition around those training periods to offset some of that under eating that happens throughout the week.
I mean, I think that's where the science is going.
Yeah.
And that some people will say, oh, I feel so great fasted training.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, well, if you have someone that's just starting exercise and that's the only way they'll do it, and then do it. I mean, that's more important, but you will recover better if then you fuel after.
Yeah.
As we get to individuals that have trained longer, or when we think about higher intensity work or higher volume work, you really do want to have some sort of nutrients, as we know it will increase volume and indirect effects of the workout.
Yeah. I will say, like, I totally get fasting and at a 5 a.m. workout and like getting up and not being ready to stomach something and going for a run and then coming home and fueling. I did have clients in the past that would, wake up, have their coffee, and there's a specific subset of people that I've worked with that had this kind of life where their trainer would come to their house at like 10 or 11 in the morning and they wouldn't want to eat before that. And we were seeing plateaus and we weren't seeing them break through and see those body composition changes. And a lot of it came down to under eating. And I feel like their body wasn't used to metabolizing as much food as I wanted them to eat, and just bringing like hydrochloric acid and like digestive enzymes on at like with an earlier breakfast and making sure we had like a 2-hour window between when they ate and when they worked out. We finally started to break through that. And it was so counterintuitive for them, especially like perimenopausal women is like kind of, or like my age. I don't know what it is, but I just like attract clients my age. They've grown up with me or maybe whatever. But it was amazing because it's like hard to sell someone on eating a breakfast if they've maintained their weight for 10 years by only eating 1,200 calories a day at 600 at each meal, lunch and dinner, and then like, calling it. But it was the game changer that actually put on the lean muscle mass, that got their metabolism up, that allowed for them to have like really like food flexibility.
Well, and I think no one talks about that. Like, it does depend on your goals. If your goal is body recomposition and changes in muscle and energy, it does require some focus, especially if you've been under fueling like our generation was taught. I think if you're exercising for pure cardiovascular benefits and some other things, maybe dialing in your feeding isn't that important. It's more important to get out the door. So I think there's some nuance in that. But I 100% agree, especially around some of the mitochondrial changes. The fasted exercise is really accelerating mitochondrial changes. That is why we exercise. But it also becomes very efficient, which then means you don't, you basically are burning fewer calories and more efficient during that training, which is not great for changes in body composition and muscle.
Yeah, your body's like, I can do this with only 100 calories. No big deal. That really hard 75-minute workout. And you're like, no, I'm in here trying to like burn up some fuel, but you just have awesome little mito engines.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. That makes perfect sense. So for when you're thinking about like longevity purposes and having the energy that you need to function as a mom, as a teacher, as a researcher, like when you think long-term, what are your goals and how do you track those over time? Like you mentioned bone mass, you mentioned muscle mass, like women get on the scale, they get frustrated and they stop. Like how do you stay consistent and use the research to support you to do that?
Yeah. So, I mean, I have lots of tools at my fingertips, but I like to do my DEXA about every 9 months.
Okay.
And I have since I was in grad school. So I have
cool.
25 years. I definitely did it pre-post children.
Yeah.
It also helps me understand some of the limitations with the device. But I think numbers are so powerful. I don't think everyone needs to go do a DEXA scan. But a lot of what we've looked at too is validation of those in-home scales where you stand on with your without your socks on.
Yeah.
Tracking those changes is really powerful. So for instance, like over time, with way less training and optimizing nutrition, my body comp is the same. And it's because you can do things more effectively and efficiently versus just harder, which is, the more exercise, less fuel is what we were taught. So I do think, and that goes the case. So I think a body composition measurement is very telling. And partly why we do that within our interventions is understanding what is happening. And it speaks to something you mentioned. A lot of times we'll do a progressive resistance training study and we may not see changes in muscle. And that's not because the exercise isn't working, it's because they're not fueled. And so it's really started to say, okay, how do we optimize that? So some sort of body composition measurement is very helpful. Bone. So most of us, our healthcare supports a bone measurement when we're in our 60s.
Yeah, too late.
It's too late. I mean, we have a lot of our young athletes that we measure, and then our midlife women that are under, like they are already having low bone density. And so you can increase bone over time. And why would we not start in our 30s and our 40s versus wait till our 60s? I do think there's more resources now to get some of those measurements, which I think is great. Other tools that I think are helpful is a measurement of resting metabolic rate. Now, technology varies, but it does really say, okay, oh, that's how much I burn at rest. Well, I also need to put that back in, and that does not account for my activity. There's really cool data around strength. So, there's a big debate now, especially around our GLP-1s, of loss of muscle or maintenance or loss of function. Function is so important as we age. Even if we, lose muscle or we maintain muscle, what's our function? Can I carry my groceries? Can I get out of bed? Those are really important indicators of longevity.
Yeah, you don't want to fall. You don't want to break a hip. You don't want you want to be able to get up off the ground. Yeah, that's scary. Wow. I'm a huge fan of DEXA. I actually had someone from DEXA on the show, and if someone's listening and wants to try it, I think I have it's like $100 off or a discount on that on the website. So
there's a lot of boutiques now too. A lot of places where you can go and get a DEXA scan. Which I think is really helpful. Particularly what we do in the lab is look at not just total body, but right limb, left limb. And we actually just had a paper published where we can go in and look at glute, quads, and calves. Especially I don't know about you, but as I age, I might have a knee pain. And then I overcompensate, but it's coming from my right glute. And so we can start to say, okay, now I'm going to do my exercise a little bit different. I'm going to focus on that right glute weakness. So it's not just how much muscle or how much fat. It's also, okay, where is it stored and how do we help those imbalances?
Yeah, I'm totally hamstring dependent. I'm my hamstrings are all muscle and my quads are slightly marbled. Yeah. But I mean, I'm super double jointed. I'm just like my mom. I end up locking out and then I take it in my low back and then it's doom, doom, doom. And then, it's taken, especially post children and pelvic floor therapy to be hey, look, you're really tilting here and you're not engaging your quads in the way that you should. And that this is how you should load and this is how you should lift. Even understanding your body and space and proprioception and being okay, how am I actually going to support my body so that I'm really standing up strong and lean and I can lift these kids even when they're 7 years old. You know what I mean? Because they still want to jump on you a jungle gym. So,
and the importance of not just you hit no one's talking about, it's not just heavy lifting. It's also focusing on where those weaknesses are, because if you're doing it incorrectly, it can cause more pain, especially as we age. So yes, it's about functionality and mobility and lifelong longevity.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think too, I didn't play at a collegiate level, but I played club all the way through. I was 18 and played for fun in adult leagues. But I've had knee surgeries and I've had ankle injuries and just stuff that you're just oh, there's a lot of scar tissue down there. I just want to make sure that I have that function.
And maybe you didn't plan this, but I think one of the most untapped benefit of creatine is around injury. So specifically around surgery, anytime anyone in my family has a surgery, back surgery, knee surgery, I send them creatine and I send them H&B.
Okay.
But creatine has really shown to help maintain strength and immobilization. Some really cool data. And when I think maybe I'm the only one, but I keep getting these random injuries. Yeah. And that's the next study is to look at how hormones impact some of our muscle stiffness into perimenopause. But I think creatine has a lot of benefit around, like we know exercise plus creatine is really important. But when you take a scenario where your exercise volume goes down, or you are immobilized. There's some neat data that shows that doing a loading dose post-surgery and having creatine within the muscle when you go into PT, it can help increase strength faster and muscle faster than baseline.
That's so interesting. I also, and I don't know if this is just a theory that I have in my brain being that my parents kept me really active as a kid. Like I'm really grateful that I played a sport, like a team sport, that I lifted, that I went to the training room, that I I played soccer pretty seriously. And I think about like that base level of just muscle and body composition that I had at a young age. And I feel like I've had bouts where, whether I'm pregnant and I'm like, not be able to do the same things I used to do, or I have a knee surgery or an injury, I do feel like there's something about having that base layer and then being able to get back from and recover from that, or like have your child and be cleared to work out, or, in that 8 weeks prior or after, and to lift again. I feel like muscles come back so quickly. Is there something there?
Yeah, I mean, that's pure physiology. Yeah. And I mean, that goes into training age. Okay. Of that, there's a lot of mitochondrial changes, but also down to muscle fiber hypertrophy and just motor unit recruitment. Yeah. So when you're not using it, we can have some detraining effects. Yeah. But it absolutely will come back faster if you have that kind of neuromotor control. Yeah. And absolutely. And I think pregnancy is such a cool thing. Like I always say, it's the most athletic event you'll ever do. You should train for it. Yeah. And so when you think about that piece of like, you might not be training the same, but yes, postpartum is also, okay, how do you kind of get all of those things firing again in a way that supports obviously holding a child, but your mental and physical health? There's a lot of really cool physiology around it.
So we talked about physical benefits of creatine. We talked about the Alzheimer's effect, mind and mental. Can we talk a little bit about like any of the studies you've seen in regards to like mental health or depression, anxiety, any of that kind of, and how and why that might be supportive?
Yeah. So a couple things to think about. Across the menstrual cycle, particularly in the luteal phase, there are changes in anxiety and depression. That's hormonally related. And then we see that elevate into perimenopause because of those repeated fluctuations. So first of all, if you're perimenopausal and you have increased anxiety, depression, that's normal. And then what the literature is showing with creatine is it does help more with antidepressant effects and anti-anxiety and mood when there is some sort of subclinical depressive symptoms. And even there's some data that shows when combined with an SSRI, the effects are better. And so I hypothesize it comes back to brain energy, ATP stores. And so creatine is one of those really affordable things to try of like, if you're seeing changes in your mood, I would do a slightly higher dose at 10 grams. There may be some potential benefits with very minimal side effects. Yeah. And if you are already taking an SSRI, it still might have better benefits. And so the other window that we haven't spent much time on, but the other time we see a big brain changes is postpartum. Maybe I blocked that out intentionally. But especially the postpartum depression. Creatine can be potentially beneficial for the mom, but also if you're nursing or for brain and fetal kind of not only development, but postpartum.
I mean, that makes perfect sense to me because postpartum is this like amazing soup of like your hormones totally crashed out. You're up every 2 hours. You're majorly sleep deprived. And if you are nursing, your body is working overtime to produce food and fuel for your child. Wow.
Yeah. So even a perfect storm there. And everyone asks, is it safe?
Yeah.
And the thought would be like, well, eating meat is safe. And I don't know about you, but when I was postpartum, like you just don't have as much time to eat. You're always holding a child.
Yeah.
And so that just would be slightly potentially greater benefit or function of having some creatine supplementation.
Yeah. And I will say, like, I don't know that I ate 2 to 3 pounds of ground beef on top of my daily food intake, but I was probably pounding like a pound of ground beef or turkey every single day. And with my third, and it wasn't until, like the third where you're like, holy cow, I've given all my nutrition away. I've like had grown a baby, nursed a baby for 18 months, grown a baby, nursed a baby for 22 months. And it's all like after 35, So then with Julian, my third, I was just like, that's it.
I'm optimizing everything.
I'm sick of talking about it. Like I'm taking this like very seriously. And it was the fastest recovery, the best like muscle composition. Like I had the most energy. It was, and I was doing the aminos, the creatine, the magnesium, plus a pound of ground beef. And half the time it was like the ancestral blend with liver. So I'm
thinking that's the book we write. No, like especially during pregnancy of like I would up omega-3 at certain times. You have and so through pregnancy and postpartum, women want to know, and it's scary of don't take anything. But in reality, these things very much support the mom, but also the baby, and we want to do the best for them too.
Yeah, I even just thinking about labor and delivery and like talk about like fast energy needed for contractions. Like, that if I could go back, I would have done it prior when I was pregnant versus like just postpartum.
See, I went into labor and delivery as like, here's my nutrient timing plan. I delivered both my babies standing up in a squat position this is an athletic event. Yeah. And I trained for it. And then here we go.
Oh my God, your goals, Abbie.
No, it's just science. It's like, why wouldn't you?
No, I know.
You need the muscles and here's the energy that you need.
Yeah, that is so rad.
Yeah.
Well, everyone listening who's going to get pregnant or pregnant, this is your next move. Creatine on board, squat position, catch your own baby. It's basically
I did not catch my own baby.
That's so cool. Congratulations. I mean, and just awesome to show that it can be like truly like train for it and then like go through your event. Like
it's an empowering event. Yes, it sure is, for sure.
Oh my goodness. Okay, well, you can't leave without me asking a question around blood sugar. How does creatine support blood sugar balance?
So most of the data has been explored in animals, but when you see, there is some interesting data in diabetics, and because creatine impacts GLUT4, which is within our muscle, it has been shown to help pull glucose into the cell and also stimulates insulin sensitivity, so increases insulin. I wouldn't say like that's absolutely what we would take for glucose regulation, but there's early data that does say that it might be really helpful.
Yeah.
And so as we have multiple groups of individuals like diabetics, or we see changes in glucose regulation through perimenopause, it could be one additional benefit that helps with glucose stability and insulin sensitivity as we age, which I think is really exciting that we can get through, something as simple as creatine.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to just, encourage people to take creatine to support blood sugar balance. Yeah. Obviously, you're bringing creatine on board. You're lifting or straining those muscles, and you're really improving insulin sensitivity through that. And then also knowing, it's affecting GLUT4, and you're pulling more glucose out of your bloodstream into your muscles. You're going to fuel up your muscles. You're going to keep your blood sugar balanced. That makes sense to me.
Yeah, it's combined with exercise. Yeah. And when you think about GLUT4, that's the benefits of the muscle.
Yeah.
So in combination or together with the training, it might just accelerate it even more.
So awesome. Anyone kind of bumping up against pre-diabetes or those like higher A1C numbers, it's like, let's get some creatine on board. Let's start to lift a little bit and let's see what our muscles can do for us.
Absolutely. Optimize.
I love it. Thank you for sharing all the science that you shared today and empowering women to not be afraid to take creatine and to bring it on board and to try it. It is such an affordable supplement. And like like you, for a very long time, I was like, I can get everything with my organ meats and my greens and my veggies. And the reality is, like, I get my blood tested like every year, sometimes twice a year, and my nutrient levels on a NutriVal, and I'm just like, like I do need to keep B vitamins on board, to keep my B vitamins where they want to be, where I want them to be. I do need to keep EPA and DHA on board to keep my omegas where I want them to be. Like, and a creatine isn't something that pops up for me on those type of tests. I'm not testing it, but I notice a benefit personally. And I just, I want women to feel better and empowered to do it. And I think for many of us, it's like, ooh, water weight, a little bit of bloating, I can't do it. And they don't ever push through to see like what it could feel like on the other end. How long, to close out, like how long, if someone feels like they've gained a little bit of water weight or like feel a little bit puffy, does that like go away? Because I've noticed for me, it like I noticed it the first couple of days when I was doing heavy doses, but then I don't notice it at all now.
Yeah, I would say there's so many different strategies. Like if someone wants the benefits fast, I say, okay, try a loading dose. And then if someone, doesn't or wants to do sometimes a slightly lower dose can help. So 1.5 grams twice a day versus the 5 grams.
Okay, so split it up.
Yeah, split it up. The other thing that is the creatine monohydrate is where most of the science is, but there are different types.
Yeah.
And so Al's Chem, based out of Germany, they tend to have the highest quality. And so sometimes if someone is experiencing bloating, I often say, okay, what are you taking it with? And what type of creatine?
Yeah.
So just more going back to the quality and then taking it with nothing else, just to see. And then if you're having symptoms, I would say it's rare, but every person that matters is it could respond differently. So there's some different strategies of even when you're taking it and dosing wise.
Yeah.
The other interesting thing that I think is really valuable is when you take it with carbohydrate, it can help with muscle glycogen repletion.
Okay.
But like maybe you don't want that. So then take it, by itself. So before giving up, I would say like, is this part, like what is the rest of your diet? And is this like the next component?
Yeah.
There are some things to see, and it's worth trying for a pretty low price that outweighs any sort of, bloating gas.
Yeah. It's funny that, it's nice that you bring that up because I I do have creatine on my supplement line, and I do pay a premium for Al's Chem, and I use their new Crevitalis, which is their super micronized version. And I was going to just go with Creapure, but then I got really excited about the micronization just because I noticed a difference in like my GI side effects and it's known for absorption or whatever. And I mean, there's a lot of people that are like, look for NSF certification or third-party testing. And I think all of that's really important, but I just loved that they got their raw materials from in Germany and they source, everything sourced basically and made in-house versus like coming from all over the world, and we don't really know how it's being made.
Absolutely.
Control the controllables in my mind when it comes to simplification of our products. Like I just am always like the most minimal. I'm not going to add things, and you see people adding taurine or fulvic acid or all these things, and I'm like, the studies are mostly just on creatine monohydrate, so I'm just going to keep it as what it is and try to get the best source and see where it goes. So,
well, right. And the micronized helps with the kind of dissipation. You can put it in your coffee. It's not always at the bottom of your cup, which is great. And I think quality is important, especially when we're talking about giving it to, during pregnancy or postpartum. Yeah. There is an element of knowing where your materials came from is really important.
Yeah. I mean, this whole business, my whole supplement business, which I didn't, for 8 years, I talked about like making a smoothie. And then, I got pregnant with Sebastian, and I was like, wait a second, I'm not going to take this protein because it may have heavy metals, and I'm not going to take this protein because I don't know what cows they're using. I'm not going to take this protein. And then I was like, shoot, I got to make protein
my own
powder. So it's kind of how it's evolved. And now I basically just make my essentials, like the things I mostly take. I like to know what's on, I like to know the cooks in the kitchen and then like get in there on the recipe. You know what I mean? So, anyways, all that to say.
I haven't tried all your products. I did. You have some great products, all of the essentials.
Yeah, we have an essential amino acids too. And we source it from Japan. And it's fermented, and leucine rich and studied, which I really loved.
Yeah. We do a lot of work with essential amino acids.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Like that's what we're doing in our fed versus fasted.
Okay.
Is most people are talking about eating carbs before training.
Yeah.
Which is great if you need the, carbs.
Energy or whatever.
But we're looking at a lot of times protein or amino acids pre-exercise versus fasted.
Okay.
Because of some of the changes in metabolic flexibility and just increasing protein synthesis.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of crazy to me that like lifting weights, obviously lifting heavy, you can get that muscle protein synthesis, but also just like an amino acid blend with a specific amount of leucine. And all of a sudden you're seeing that. Yeah. It was, I don't know. It was like 1.5 grams of our essential amino acids is the same as 40 grams of whey protein.
Of a protein shake. Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like for a lot of people, like chugging a 40 grams of whey protein prior to working out. It's like GI side effects, burping, bloating, like all that is just not the same. It's just like put a little something in your water and then all of a sudden you're getting the same benefits. It feels great. But that was it wasn't that I couldn't get my hands on essential amino acids. It's that most of them came with natural flavors, artificial flavors, a lot of malic acid. And I was just like, I don't want the other stuff.
Yeah.
I just give me just the amino acids.
Yes.
So I know it's hard though, because it kind of tastes like burnt hair.
Well, that's why you mix them with some seltzer or put them in your yogurt or whatever. Yeah.
I'm going to start using all your tricks.
Well, I'll use yours too.
Okay. So Abbie, where can people follow along? Where can they learn about your research? We're manifesting a book for you because I feel like your brain needs to be in something that everyone can read.
I do have a personal website.
Okay.
And it's abbesmithryan.com.
Okay.
And I am on Instagram trying to do a better job of translating some science. Those are the two best places. And we'll be finishing up our creatine study at the end of the year. Okay. And the hope is to translate. There's some really cool data so far on sleep and strength and body recomp.
Let's do it all.
Let's do it all, right? Especially in the few hours a day that we do have to take care of ourselves.
110%. Well, we'll lead everyone to your Instagram so they can follow along and wait for those updates. And I will give you all of the clips for your Instagram from this.
Okay.
So you can
I'm a nerdy scientist. I need to take your entrepreneurial spirit and do better.
Well, no, it's honestly, you're the best type of people because you get into the nitty gritty and then you're able to distill it down for everyone else. And especially with your ability to explain science in a very approachable way. That's why you're here. I love it. So
hopefully we did that today.
We did.
Okay.
I know we did.
Well, maybe there'll be some follow-up questions.
Yeah.
So
we'll get them to you and then you can answer them on your Instagram.
There we go. Okay. Well, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Be Well by Kelly LeVeque podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please consider leaving a review in your favorite podcast app and subscribing on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube. We're also excited to share that full-length video episodes are now on YouTube and Spotify, so you can watch along as you listen. The best way to support me and the show is by sharing it with your friends and family. Your recommendations make all the difference. This is a Wellness Loud production produced by Drake Peterson. The video is recorded by Luke Rodriguez and edited by Jesse Trout. Sound mixing is by Mike Fry. See you next time.
The content of this show is for educational and informational purposes only. It is not a substitute for individual medical or mental health advice and does not constitute a provider-patient relationship. As always, talk to your doctor or healthcare team first. Shout out to the Newport Beach Pendry for hosting us. I'm so grateful to record in such a beautiful space that truly elevates the podcast experience for myself and my guests. From the stunning design to their incredible hospitality, it's the perfect setting for meaningful conversations and creative energy. Hey, thanks, Pendry.